thing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome everyone to Care Concierge with Care Patrol, where education is the heart of everything we do. We are here today with a returning speaker, Pam Strickland from Medicaid Application Processing Services. And Ms. Strickland, who's been doing this sort of work for the last 18 years and has done probably literally thousands of Medicaid applications, will share with us today helping families with difficulties with filing. So thank you all for joining us. If you're not familiar with CarePatrol, we're an aging care navigation firm, or sometimes referred to as a referral agent or placement agent, meaning that we meet clients where they are in their healthcare journey, whether they're in a planning stage or they're in a crisis stage, and we're meeting them from a hospital or rehab bed. We talk with them, help them understand what their options for care are and how to qualify for and engage and pay for those options. And if those options include community living or sitter services in the home, we refer providers who pay us a fee. That's how we stay in business. And we're so appreciative to each of you who join us each week here with Care Concierge for your referrals, because they keep us in business. And I know that as Ms. Strickland and I were just talking, she also is benefited by your referrals, and most appreciative of each of you for reaching out. If you're not familiar with Care Concierge as a series, we have an online evaluation. And that evaluation is password protected, and you must do that evaluation in order to receive credit for this course. We are accredited by the Alabama Board of Nursing, and we're also accredited by the Alabama Board of Social Work. Each of those accreditations runs through 2026. And what they say to us, or at least what the Board of Social Work says, is that if we have a password protected evaluation, we can then prove that this hour is live for you. So this is not a pre-recorded CEU hour. This is a live or classroom hour, according to the Board of Social Work. And the reason being that we have a password protected evaluation. We give that password out at the end today. So do listen for that. And it will also be posted in the chat room. We'd love to have your discussion with Ms. Strickland. I know she and I both appreciate having feedback from each of you. If you're not familiar with Zoom and you'd like to add to the discussion, move your cursor to the top of your screen or down to the bottom, and you will see a bar pop up that will have the word chat on it. Click on that word chat and join in the discussion. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today. And I'll reiterate what Miss Betty Potts said to all of you. Hello, March is Social Work Month. Enjoy the month. And I would say the same, and also remind you that social work is not social theory. It's not social practice. It's social work. Each of you does a yeoman's task in providing services to your clients. Those of you who are social workers, those of you who are nurses, don't feel that we don't appreciate you as well. I'm going to type now into the chat room for those of you who are looking to make note of it, what our evaluation link is for today. And it is, and I'll read it now for those of you that cannot see the screen. Please make note of our evaluation link for today. Please do remember that it is password protected. We give the password at the end. The link for today is https:// www.surveymonkey.com/lowercase r/ all uppercase letters with some numbers M as in Mary, Q, M as in Mary, 7, H, X, 7. And I have posted that into the chat room for you all. Please remember it's password protected. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for helping us celebrate Social Work Month. And thank you to Ms. Strickland. And we'd love to hear about your topic now, Ms. Strickland, Medicaid helping families with difficulties with filing.
Thank you, Sean, and I'm excited to be here, and thank you all for joining us. I get a lot of questions from social workers and also from potential clients that come in with a variety of problems. They've been told by a nursing home or by a social worker at a hospital or someone that they wouldn't qualify because they have certain things in their history which would keep them from being approved. And most everything that has happened in the past 60 months or 5 years, which is the look back for Medicaid, we can deal with. So let's just begin with the very basics so that we understand that when qualifying in the state of Alabama, we know we have very basic tenets, and that is you got to be an Alabama resident. That residency usually is 6 months. I've had them approved for after 30 days, though. I've had them approved when a client has been in like Florida. They were on Florida Medicaid, and the son moved the mother up here, and she was up here for 30 or 40 days, and Alabama Medicaid approved her. So they have to be an Alabama resident. Of course, they have to be a U.S. citizen, or they have to be in satisfactory immigration status, meet certain medical criteria, and we'll go through that, have an income below a certain amount, and have resources below a certain amount, and that is just the basic tenets. Now, on the medical criteria, they have to be 65 or older if they're going to get long-term care Medicaid qualified, that is nursing home qualified, or they can be medically disabled under the age of 65. I have someone right now who is the age of 60 who has had 5 strokes since December and can mumble but cannot move his body well at all. And so we're looking to get him into a long-term care facility. So he's 60, but he certainly meets the criteria that we'll talk about in a moment. Or a psychiatric treatment for age 65 or older. And that treatment doesn't have to be in a long-term care facility as far as a nursing home. So we'll go back to that. Now, if under age 65, an individual must be blind or disabled, and the person I'm dealing with at this moment is certainly disabled. A disability is defined as the inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of a medically determined physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to last for a continuous period. Now, I also have a client in Pensacola that just moved up to the Gulf Shores, and he is a quadriplegic, but he works 5 days a week, and he's an engineer. And he just needs home waiver. He just needed a home waiver for people to get him up in the morning, help him shower, get dressed, and then he's on his way. And then at night to help him get undressed and get in bed. So those are 2 separate things. And even though he would qualify if he were put into a nursing home, he's very active. And being a quadriplegic has not stopped him in the least. In fact, he graduated from Yale. So that tells you there that the home waivers, which I do not do, and I'm sure many of you out there do home waivers. I got him through the CEL program. I sent him that information, and they were able to get help for him there. I'm sure that you can speak about that, but as you know from other seminars that I've given, I don't do waivers, and I don't want to give you any ill-conceived information. So if you're out there and you have waiver experience, feel free to just chuck any information in the suite that you want to, because I don't have any information about waivers. But disability, if under the age of 65, this is a criteria that must be met. I've had people come in and say, well, my daughter has been in a psychiatric facility for quite some time. So that is different. Now, if the psychiatric treatment hospital for the age of 65, that means that inpatient psychiatric services for recipients aged over 65 are covered if they are in a freestanding facility. There are freestanding facilities that cover psychiatric help. One of them is the Mary Harper Center down in Tuscaloosa. They do an excellent job. And I have had elderly clients who have gone through Alzheimer's or dementia with the personality changes, and they have certain elements that hit them in the middle of this transition in the dementia stage that makes them combative, that makes them, well, I've had one that's what they call sexually overtoned. I have some that stop talking, all of these things. And so we have referred them to the Mary Harper Center, and they have worked with them, got their meds under control, and they have done wonderful since then. And they're able to go into a long care facility and have had no problems whatsoever. But also there have been some that have mental incapacities or are psychiatric, need psychiatric care 24/7. And Mary Harper Center is a great place for them. And they do take Medicaid. So that's a place that is a freestanding psychiatric hospital. I don't know of others. I'm sure there are others, but that's the one I've dealt with the most. And if any of you know of any others, please feel free to speak out and let me know. Under the direction of a geriatric psychiatrist. Now, geriatric is very different than normal. They understand the nuances of an aging brain and of an aging body. They understand the nuances of not only dementia and Alzheimer's, but they understand the impact it has on families and who can care for them and who can't. So it's very important that if you have an aging parent who is going through this type of illness, if their personality is changing, it's extremely important that a geriatric psychiatrist would see them. And you can get a geri psych unit at most hospitals to get them seen. And they can, at that point, have a be given a diagnosis that will help with the long-term care facility to accept them, and also get meds in them that can help them if they're combative, angry, disillusioned, those types of things that can help with that. And if those geriatric psychiatrists cannot in geri psych, well, then they can be referred by the mental health department to a geriatric hospital for psychiatric services. And then to a patient remaining in the facility for the course of the hospitalization, there are some very different hospitals and facilities that deal with these types of instances. For example, my mom had dementia. She had vascular dementia. And 5 minutes ago with her did not exist, but she could tell you her whole life story and she would remember everyone. But if you ask her if she ate today, she would say no, and she would have food on her blouse where she had eaten and had dropped it, but she had no memory of it. So those types of things, when they're in my mom was in assisted living, and she did fantastic while she was in assisted living because they stayed on top of that. And they understood that she could not take her own medicine, that they would need to do that. And she could tell you what the medicine was. She could say what was blood pressure pills or whatever, but she could not remember the names of them, and that was okay. A lot of people, elderly people who are going through this type of transition, don't even remember they take medicine. And that causes them to get UTIs, causes them to get other illnesses, which just exacerbate their problems. And if you deal with dementia in any way, you understand that a UTI can send them over the edge. And that's one of the worst infections that they can have. So it's very hard, it's very important to stay on top of that. Now, inpatient psychiatric services for recipients 65 or older are unlimited if medically necessary, and the admission and or the continued stay reviews meet the approved psychiatric criteria. And this is rule number 560X 5.01 in the Medicaid rules. And this is important because they have to meet certain criteria. Being in an inpatient facility is most of that criteria, and it's going to be in there for a long term. So that is very important that these rules be met so that Medicaid can be obtained for these people. I've had short stays, Bradford and other places, short stays, which did not meet that criteria. So it's very important that you have, at the age of 65 and older, you have a diagnosis of what it is, and that the inpatient psychiatric services will continue even in the nursing home, which they normally do. They continue to get the same meds. A lot of time when we send them to Mary Harper, they'll respond to the nursing home they're going to be moved to with the meds. They'll talk about them, and they'll get on equal plane with what they should be, and everything continues right along in the same way. So that's the psychiatric part of that for the age of 65 and older. Now, if they're under the age of 65, normally they call that a disability. And they look at the disability rules for that. And we've gone through that, but those are the two differences there. Do we have any questions on this?
We're not having any questions in the chat room so far, but I encourage everyone on the line to pose any questions you may have about the Medicaid application process to Ms. Strickland.
Certainly. Now let's talk about income limit. Now the income limit for 2024 has changed. It's $28.29 per month. And if the claimant or the person going to be on Medicaid, the Medicaid claimant's income is above this by any amount, a penny, any amount, and this is gross amount we have to look at, then they must set up what is called a qualified income trust, which is a bank account. And it's very specific. I've had qualified income trusts set up that were set up incorrectly, and Medicaid has not accepted them. And therefore, they were not accepted for Medicaid for that month. And so when I speak about QITs, which is the name that we call that, we're very specific about how that has to be set up. My instructions are given when I do the document. I have a set of instructions that goes with them. And number 5 in my set of instructions is highlighted in red and underlined. It's all caps and it's italic, and I have 2 fingers pointed at it. So it's pretty important. And that number 5 says, excuse me, says that you must set up the QIT account with a Social Security deposit, dollar for dollar, penny for penny, for the amount that is deposited into their account. I've had banks tell clients, no, set it up with $50. That'll set the account up. And they've done that, and they have been disapproved. We couldn't use it. So when we talk to clients, and when you speak to clients and you know they're over the income limit, it is extremely important that we tell them this can be handled, but it must be handled in a very specific way, or Medicaid won't accept it. So my instructions are vivid. They are printed, they are highlighted, everything. And I actually had a client call me very upset with me because Medicaid denied them because the QIT wasn't set up correctly. So I pulled up the instructions, and he had them in front of him. I said, what does number 5 say? He goes, well, I didn't follow that. I did what the bank told me. I said, you hired me. I'm your consultant. And I gave you step-by-step instructions, of which you followed except for number 5, which is highlighted, underlined, all capped, and in red. Does that not seem important to you? And he said, well, yes. And I said, well, I'm sorry you're upset at me, but all we can do is try again. So I want you to go back to the bank, and I want you to put in dollar for dollar, cent for cent for next month, that amount. And then we got them approved. So even those instructions laid out as they were, they followed what the bank said. And the bank doesn't know Medicaid. So it's very important that when we give instructions to the people that we deal with, it is a fire hose of information for them, and they barely remember anything. So it's good that we write it down, we follow up with them, and then we give it to them in a form that they can read sentence by sentence of what to do. Because a lot of times they don't even understand it when they're reading it as much as we explain it. So that takes care of the income limit and what we can do for it. Now, if the
We have a
income,
question,
sure,
which is what happens to money in the QIT account when the resident passes away?
great question. It depends on what income is in the QIT account. So I have a client who has 5 incomes. 5. He retired from US Steel. So he had US Steel pension. He had a SIPCO pension. He had railroad pension. He had Social Security. And he had a very small pension from an annuity that paid him for life. 5 pensions. So his income per month was well over $5,000. So we had to redirect those pensions, every one of them except for the small one, to the QIT. So when money comes in to the QIT, it can only be income, by the way. Nothing else can go in the QIT but income. Social Security will take that money back. Okay. So upon death, Social Security pays a month ahead. They're going to take that money back. So you can't touch that Social Security money once he dies. You can't pay the nursing home with it. It goes back to Social Security. The other incomes belong to Medicaid. Medicaid can reach into that account and take that money out. But what they do, they send you a letter. They send the claimant a letter, and it says, our apologies for the death of your spouse or claimant or whoever it may be to you. We understand he had a QIT. That money belongs to Medicaid. Please write us a check for that amount and close the QIT out. And send us evidence that you've done that. So what I tell my clients is send them the bank statement that had the balance, send them a check for the balance, and send them a bank statement or a printout from the bank that shows it's a zero account and it has been closed. That's how you close out a QIT. So that money does not belong to the claimant. It actually belongs to Medicaid, except for Social Security or VA. But VA at this point is just $90 a month and it belongs to the claimant, and they can keep that money. But for the most part, Social Security, they take that money back. And so you can't take that money out for them. Any
We
other
have
questions?
several questions. Yeah, we have. So, and I'll just keep going. So what amount is allowed by Medicaid for burial expenses? How does this affect life insurance policies the person has over this amount and the beneficiaries of these policies?
Excellent question. If it is term, talking about insurance, let's start with insurance. If it is term, they don't look at term. It can be any amount. Okay, term is term. That's fine. The beneficiaries can stay the same. Okay. Now, if it is whole life, the policy cannot be above $5,000, have cash value above $5,000, or you have to cash that out. Now, let's say that you have a whole life policy. A lot of people have whole life policies to pay for burial. Well, then we have to designate it as burial fund. And there's a form they send us that we fill out, and we designate that policy for the burial fund. And that means that policy cannot be used for any other thing. It must be used for the burial fund. Third thing, if it's not going to be used as that and the cash value is above what it should be, $5,000, you have to cash it in, and that money has to be used on the claimant's care. Now, I'm sorry, that was whole life. What was the other? I'm sorry, what's the other part of that, Sean?
Let me see. It was
Burial.
it was burial. What is the amount allowed by Medicaid for the burial expense?
Let me click over real quick to the and I can go back to what I was going to do. Let's go back to non-countable resources. On the burial, we have you have a $5,000 cap for burial. Here we go. If on the funeral part of that, that means embalming, the service, those types of things cannot be above $5,000. And if you go to a place to set up pre-need, or if they're passed away and you're on Medicaid and you're going to pay for this, you cannot pay above $5,000 for the funeral part of this. And most times you tell them you're dealing with Alabama Medicaid, it's usually $48.25. They get as much as they can. Sometimes it's $48.95, but they get below the $5,000. But on the funeral part of this, on the cemetery side, there is no cap. They do not count casket, vault, crypt, burial plot, the opening and closing, and the marking. Markers on the grave, the headstone and the footstone. None of that counts in that $5,000. You can spend as much as you need to on the funeral side of that, $10,000. It doesn't make any difference. I've had people call me and say, we have a family crypt, which are those tall mausoleums you see, and 5 or 6 family members are in there. Are they gonna make us pay for that? No, that's part of the cemetery part of that. So they don't look at the cemetery side. They do look at the funeral side. So the cap is $5,000. And what they do is we send them a copy of the contract that the claimant has with the funeral. And we say, okay, here's the casket. We're going to take that off. Here are, the opening, closing, all of that's on the contract part of that. We minus it out and we give them the total at the bottom of a form that I do that says this is the actual cost of what the funeral is, disregarding everything that had to do with the cemetery.
Okay.
So that's non-countable resources. Okay.
And that sort of feeds into our next question from Phyllis Smith. Can you explain how owning a house or land plays into income and qualifications for Medicaid?
Yes. Let me go back to my other slide here. Now, owning a home and land depends on if there is a community spouse or not. Community spouse, of course, gets to live in the home and gets to keep the home. Now, on land, it depends on how that land is titled. Classic example, I have a client right now who has a farm. The farm is the homestead. The wife is staying in the homestead, but they have 400 acres. And it is titled in his name, her name, and all of the children's name. And that was done back in like mid-70s. I think it was 76. So what we'd have to do is we have to divide that amount of land by the fair market amount. I think right now, if I remember correctly, the value was like $395,000 just for the land. We take that and we divide it by the number of owners. So if I remember correctly, there were 4 children and 2 adults. So, we've got 6 owners divided into that. And so then we take the individual amount of the father, and that amount a lien is placed against it for Medicaid. So that means that one, the family can come together and buy his portion for fair market value, and that's fine. That portion can be sold to someone else, and that money used for the care of the claimant, that's fine. Or that small portion, a lien will be put, and the lien's also going to be placed on it for the wife, on the homestead, for his portion of the home too. So you're going to have lien on the home for his 50% interest, and the land for his 1/6 interest, if that makes sense. And so the wife can stay there for her life and never sell that land. Upon her death, unless the house is sold to family members at fair market value, then the house, they'll want you to sell the house and give them what is owed to them. So in relationships, as in husbands and wives, and this is the only way you can do it, husband and wife, they can swap property back and forth, not a problem. I would say before we file Medicaid, we would need to quit claim the husband's portion of the land and of the house to his wife. Okay, so he has no interest in it whatsoever. That can be done a month before we file Medicaid because it's the wife and she can own it. Okay, so we quit claim all of that to the wife. When we file Medicaid, he has nothing. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't have any land. So the wife gets to live there for the duration of her life. And it's the family's upon her death, it goes by the will. So a lot of people don't understand this law, and this is elder law, and it is absolutely elder law. So that means that when you go to plan something like this, you don't need to go to a regular attorney, no matter how good that attorney is. You need to go to an elder lawyer who understands these tenets and understands that you can transfer from the husband to the wife the home interest and the land interest to her without penalty with Medicaid. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's enlightening. I didn't realize we could save the house if we could move the property from husband to wife a month prior.
Yeah, you could. I mean, they do of course, a 5-year look back, but as far as husband and wife, they can swap land back and forth and homes back and forth. That makes no difference.
That's fascinating. I have two more questions,
Mhm.
really, that basically, who sets up the QIT with the financial institutions, the social worker or the family?
Yeah.
Or okay.
The QIT document is done. I can do the QIT document and I give it to the family. Usually the power of attorney has to do it. They take it to a bank of their choice, and less banks are doing QITs these days. I don't know what's wrong, but Synovus does them. I've had 3 Synovus QITs come in the past 2 weeks. And they take this document and they sign it in the presence of a notary there at the bank. Then the bank sets up the QIT. And then that paperwork comes back to me because I'm their representative, and that bank paperwork actually belongs to Medicaid. They want the original QIT agreement back. They want the paperwork for the account. I usually just send a copy of that. And they want the deposit slip, a copy of the deposit slip showing dollar for dollar, penny for penny, what the deposit was for Social Security or any income we're putting in there. I had multiple incomes, as I spoke about. That deposit was quite large, and I told them to make that deposit one deposit at a time as proof to Medicaid. Here's this deposit slip for Social Security. Here's this deposit slip for the railroad. I did it like that, and that was perfect for them. A lot less confusion. So that's how a QIT works, and that paperwork belongs to Medicaid, and they want the original. I always say sign it in blue ink so they can tell the original. Black ink is so hard. You don't know how many times I've had Medicaid call me and say, no, we need the original. I'm like, that is the original. It's black ink. I can't do anything about that. And banks sign in black ink. So I tell the claimant, sign in blue ink so we can tell the original. It's very important to Medicaid.
That's fascinating. And then I've got more questions. One, this is maybe a big question. Can you explain state recovery with Medicaid?
Yes, sure. State recovery is after the individual has passed away. First, let's go back for a little bit. When we do the Medicaid application, there's a blank at the very bottom. If this blank is not checked, they will send the Medicaid application back to us. That blank says, I agree that a state recovery can happen in this case, basically. And that blank is perpetually checked on my forms. I don't uncheck it. It's just I saved the form with it, so I don't have to worry with it because I've forgotten it before. And what that means is after the death of the claimant, a state recovery will send a letter to the individual spouse or family that will say, Medicaid has a right to estate recovery. Anything that is left in the claimant's name at estate recovery must be sold or given to Medicaid. And they don't want pieces of things, they want money. So that's why it's so important. And I tell people this is why it's so important to quit claim the house and property to the wife, or if it's the wife, to the husband, so that there's no estate recovery there, because they would make you sell his portion of the land. They would make you sell his portion of the home to get money to pay themselves back at that point. Or if there are automobiles in his name, they're going to make you sell those and get the money to Medicaid. It's very important to have a will so that the will can say how things are done. So I tell people, go to an elder lawyer, get a will done, so that by testamentary means, by law, you can leave things to your family that are outside the purview of estate recovery. But anything in the name of the claimant, they're going to make you sell it and give it to Medicaid, financial means to Medicaid. So okay. There's also, if he had insurance, term insurance in his name, and let's say that the beneficiary that was named has passed away and that money is sent to the family in a check, that's not their money. That goes to Medicaid because the beneficiary is dead and it's sent to the estate. Medicaid's going to want that money. So it's always good to have sorry, my computer's running hot here. It's always good to have backup beneficiaries on term insurance in case that happens.
That's good to know. Can a partner or person in the house be someone like a disabled child living in the home, or a lifelong partner not legally married?
Yes and no. If it's disabled, yes, they can continue to live in the home. They're not going to kick a disabled person out of the home. Now, the only person who can stay in the home is the guardian or a child. Now, a partner, no. They don't look at partners. They don't look at common law. They don't look at those types of things. If they're married, yes, that's a community spouse. Medicaid does not look at those partners as, in fact, I had this happen. I had to, a gentleman came to me they lived together for 6 years and she was in a nursing home, and Medicaid says he can't stay. He had to sell the house, give Medicaid the money, and he had to go. And that was considered a partner relationship. So no, partners cannot.
And last question, well, there's actually two. One is a question that says VA benefits, you said, will decrease down to $90. Mm-hmm. Would that be aid and attendance benefits only? Yes.
Yes. If it is a disability benefit, that's totally different. Aid and attendance, if they're getting aid and attendance once they go into a nursing home, there's a form we fill out that says a Medicaid is approved. Here's a copy of the Medicaid letter, and then they reduce that down to $90, and the claimant gets to keep that. So they get to keep the 90, and they get to keep the 30 from Social Security, which is, the 120. That's their pocket money. Can't do anything with that except what they want to do with it. They can buy cookies with it, Cokes, whatever they want to do with it. It's their money.
Okay. And what form is needed if an adult child has been the caretaker for the mom for years and lived in the home? How does that affect the home not being used as income?
Okay. Well, there are several questions I have to ask before, I can give you an answer, but there are several outlying questions that we would need to look at before we can do that. First of all, is there a mortgage on the home? We need to know if the home is paid for. Number two, we have to have evidence that that person was the caregiver and has been there. And what type of evidence? Mail that comes to the home, a doctor that says, yes, this has been the caregiver. They brought this person to a doctor's appointment, has lived there for some time. There are several different things, but there is a form we fill out called an intent to return home. There's also a form we fill out called dependent caregiver form. And that form simply says that I live in the house Is there anywhere else I could live? No. Am I reliant on this for my homestead? Yes. And how long have I lived here? And that can only be for a dependent child caregiver. And or of course, excuse me, if it's a disability, a person of disability, then that depends on who is taking care of the disabled person, or the conservator or guardian or something like that. So that's a little different. But as far as the child, those are the types of things that we would need.
Okay. And then someone asked, can they get married right before one goes into a nursing home to prevent loss of home?
I guess
This
so.
is the partners that are living together, I guess. And then last question, does the VA disability go to the spouse or to the nursing home?
VA disability would go to the nurse. It's part of his pension. It would go to the nursing home.
Okay. And here's another question that's popped up. What happens if the husband and wife are legally separated, but still reside in the same home when one of them has to go into a nursing home?
They consider them married, and they split the assets 50-50, just like they're a married couple.
Okay. And then a new question, if a family has to assist with groceries or utilities, how does this affect Medicaid?
Well, this happens all the time. And let me just stress, when an individual, elderly individual, is either living on their own or living in a home that a child has brought this person in, they're expected to pay monthly expenses. So let's say the child is furnishing all of the groceries, and they pay the power. They do all of this for their parent. That will, of course, that will stop once they go in the nursing home. But if that individual lives on their own, and these children are providing groceries and all that to them, Medicaid simply looks as that as a child taking care of their parent. And we can explain that as that's not gifts. We can say this was not a gift. This paid for their groceries. This paid for their, those types of things, that because a lot of people at that elderly age that we deal with are simply on Social Security. And these days, that's barely getting anybody by. And so many children help their parents in this way. And they don't call it a loan. They call it survival, basically. So we do affidavits about that, and this, that helps with that a lot. So that's usually not a penalty. We don't call it a loan. We don't call it a gift. We say that they were providing groceries because they simply didn't have enough money to buy them on their own.
And is there a time frame for the intent to return home form?
No,
Okay, so it's indefinite.
I have to fill it out every year.
Oh, they have to fill it out every year.
Yeah, every year there is a yearly review that comes out on the anniversary of the approval. Normally, when I work with clients, I get that annual review because I'm their representative. And I don't know if I've ever said this or not, but my clients are my clients for life, as long as they stay on Medicaid. So 5 or 6 years down the road, if the client has an issue with Medicaid, they don't call Medicaid, they call me. And I take care of the issue because they're my clients. I'm their representative for their life, as long as they're on Medicaid. So I get their yearly reviews, and I fill those yearly reviews out. And then I ask whomever the power of attorney is to please send me an updated bank statement, because that's what they ask for. They already have the income. Medicaid has that. So I need an updated bank statement. And then they send that to me. I fill it out, copy it. I send the original Medicaid and a copy to the power of attorney. And each year we do that. And we have a very specific system for doing that. When that yearly review comes in, because you only have 10 days, and that yearly review comes in, not only do I scan it, I copy it and put it in a very specific red file that sits on my desk. We send the scan to the power of attorney so they know what they have to get us. If there are any, I'll go ahead and fill the form out, and they are to change it if it is incorrect. If anything is changed on the form that I don't know about, they make those corrections. They send it back to me, and then I fill out the actual form at that point. and then we send it overnight mail. So it's very specific how we do this, because if you do not send that form in time, they kick them off Medicaid, and you have to reapply to get them back on. Okay, it's not a simple thing. You have to reapply to get them back on. So yeah, there's a yearly review that comes out.
That's it for the.
You're muted, Sean.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's it for the questions.
Okay.
Oh, no, I've got a new one. So how do you get paid? Does the family pay you separately, or are you able to receive money through Medicaid?
No. I get paid from the family, and well, actually from the claimant. I always tell them they can pay me from their funds, because this is a spend down on behalf of the claimant. And I charge by the complexity of the case, and I discuss those charges with each family. I take one pro bono a month, and I've got pro bonos now for the next 3 months already lined up. And we work with the family for payment, ever how that needs to be.
So you're part of the spend down. That's incredible. I didn't realize.
Yep.
Wow.
And sometimes I get paid from the Alabama Family Trust from those funds. When like if the house sells and they send the money to AFT, which we set up, AFT, I will send a bill to AFT and they'll pay me. So it's approved through the AFT for Medicaid and all of that.
Wow. Okay. Well, now maybe I think that's it for the questions at the moment.
Okay, well, let's rip through the examples of income and go. We've already gone through so much of this, but examples of income that we've talked about, of course, Social Security, Black alum benefits aren't so prevalent now, but I've had a couple. Of course, you got VA benefits, railroad retirement, federal civil service, and private pensions or retirements. Now, if the retirement is paid in an annuity, we don't have to cash that annuity in. It's a stream of income. But if they have an annuity set over to the side, and that annuity is you just get a RMD from that, a payment each. It's kind of like an IRA. You get a payment. You'd have to take the RMD or the amount each year to meet a certain criteria. You have to cash that in. And then the type of resources, we've gone through these: checks, savings, loans, mineral, timber rights, mortgages, promissory notes, real estate, stocks, bonds, time deposits, certificates of deposit. Let me just spend one moment on this. I just had a client give me all of their information. We filed Medicaid, and I get a call from Medicaid that says, did you not list on the Medicaid application? You did not list on the Medicaid application, which is punishable by law against me, their CDs. I said, well, I have no evidence of CDs. And she goes, we do. So I picked the phone up and I called the daughter. She goes, oh, I didn't think I had to tell you about those. I said, and I do a file memo after each meeting. I do a complete file memo with a to-do list, and I send it to them. I said, if you look on page 2 of my file memo, I said income or resources includes, and you'll look down halfway through the page, I think it's number 17, it says certificates of deposits, CDs, any amount. And she goes, she says, well, let me pull that up. She goes, oh, there it is. I said, there it is. Medicaid has said that I did not divulge this information, so therefore I'm liable. I need you to get me 5 years of this, and I need you to cash those CDs in, and I need you to put that money in the AFT, which we've already set up, and I need you to do this week. I don't need you to wait on this, because she was notorious for getting back to me in 2 weeks. I said, today is Tuesday. I need this done by Friday. And if you can't do it by Friday, we'll get on the phone with Medicaid and we'll explain why you didn't do it in the first place and why you didn't divulge it to me. She goes, yes, ma'am, I'll get it done. So I'm waiting on that. So CDs and bonds and stocks, guys, if they have $10 in stocks in anything, I got to know that. You have to know that, because that's a resource. And Medicaid is, I mean, they can find out anything. So I always spend a little more time on this just to let people know that you got to divulge that. We've gone through non-countable resources. So property, intent to return home from the medical facility, we file that. A bona fide effort to sell property. Now, let's say that this is an individual that's in the nursing, going into the long-term care. They own a home. The children don't want the home, and nobody's living there. It cannot sit there vacant. So we have to have a bona fide contract with a realtor. That house might not sell for 10 years, but we have to have each year a bona fide contract of trying to sell the home. And then when it sells, Medicaid, and it must sell for fair market value, Medicaid will at that point cash in their lien against the home for the amount paid. If the property is less than $6,000 or is income producing, if it's a stream of income, it can continue, and that income would just go to the nursing home. If the property interest is a life estate, that is very complicated. That is a number that is calculated by the age of the individual, and the number goes out to like 6 digits that we divide into the fair market value of the home, and that's what is calculated as their interest. And I get an elder law attorney, Bill Nolan, to do a life estate agreement, a calculation letter. We are very specific with how we handle this so that Medicaid will accept it, and they've always accepted that, so that the life estate will not be counted against the individual claimant. That's all I had to present for today. Sean, any more questions? Hey, Sean, you're muted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That I'm talking to no one. I was going to say, my mother, lives in a community, and we have a property that she owns that is, provides money. So
Yeah.
I don't have to sell that. I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Here's a new question.
It can be an income producing property.
Here's a new question. If you have a CD in 3 names, father and 2 sons, and the father goes in the nursing home, how is it divided?
The CD, when it must be equally owned. It cannot be father and then leaving it to the 2 sons. If it's equally divided by 3, 33 1/3% apiece, I think it's 33 1/3, 33.3333 is the actual calculation. It must be cashed in, and that 33.3333% must be used on behalf of the father, and the 2 sons can reinvest their money however they want to reinvest their money.
Okay, and I believe you sent me these slides already, but there are many people asking for them.
Yes,
And
I sent those to you.
Yeah, you did. And I've put back into the chat room for those on the line our evaluation link. Remember, the evaluation is password protected. Today's password is actually on the screen in front of you. It's MAPS, all caps. That's the name of Ms. Strickland's company, which stands for Medicaid Application Processing Services. Our password today is MAPS. The link is https://www.surveymonkey.com/lowercase r/all uppercase letters, M as in Mary, Q, M as in Mary, 7, H, X, 7. And there are those of you saying the survey is closed. I know it should say open, but let me go back to it and I will correct that. Just make sure you have the name of the, make sure you have the correct name for let me see if I can open this here. Open collector. Here we go. Open collector. The survey should now be open. My apologies to you all. Please do look at it and make sure and let me know that it is open now. The password is MAPS. That's MAPS, which stands for Medicaid Application Processing Services. Those are all capital letters, MAPS. And the link again is in the chat. It is https://www.surveymmonkey.com/lowercase r/all uppercase letters M as in Mary, Q, M as in Mary, 7HX7 with the password MAPS. Thank you all so much for what you do each day. Happy Social Workers Month to those of you who are in the social work field. To our nurses, please know we appreciate you being on the line as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Strickland, for being here.
Yes.
Yes, it's all caps, Ms. Johns. And we look forward to having you again. It's always so enlightening when you come and share your information and experience with us. And I know I speak for all of us. We appreciate what you do in helping thousands of people get on the Medicaid eligibility rolls and have Medicaid take care of them. We have such a need in this country and in this state for care and for the means to pay for care, which is Medicaid for many, 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 many people. So thank you for what you do. Do you have any last things to add before we close out the afternoon?
No, I just love being here. Thank you so much for allowing me. And I just wish happy Social Worker Month. And I thank you all, especially the nurses, for showing up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Strickland, and thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Monday when Ms. Strickland's former running mate, Bill Noland, who's an attorney, an elder care attorney specifically, will talk to us about probate, the who, what, when, and how of probate. So join us Monday. The password, Miss George, is MAPS, MAPS, all capital letters, which stands for Medicaid Application Processing Services. MAPS, MAPS is the password. Thank you all for being here. You can always reach me at 205-482-8759 if you have a referral or if you're having trouble with today's evaluation link. Thank you, Ms. Strickland.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.